Have you ever had that moment when your heart stops, your stomach drops, and you realize you've made a catastrophic mistake? That's exactly what happened to me last Friday at 9:43 p.m. when I sent what was supposed to be a silly text to my brother, but instead, it went straight to my boss. My incredibly attractive, intimidating, and now very aware of my thoughts CEO. If you've ever wanted to crawl into a hole and disappear forever, stick around. This story might make you feel better about your own embarrassing moments. And if you enjoy watching my complete mortification unfold, please hit that like button and subscribe for more of my life disasters turned into valuable lessons. It all started 3 months ago when I joined Horizon Innovations as a marketing coordinator. Fresh out of college with a communications degree and student loans breathing down my neck, I was beyond grateful to land a position at one of the most prestigious tech firms in the city. The pay was decent, the benefits were excellent, and the office, housed in a gleaming skyscraper downtown, made me feel like I'd finally made it. What the job listing hadn't mentioned was that the CEO, Alexander Chen, was 34, devastatingly handsome, and possessed the kind of quiet confidence that made everyone in the room straighten their posture when he walked in. With his perfectly tailored suits, the slight accent that hinted at his international education, and eyes that seemed to see right through corporate nonsense, he was the subject of much whispered admiration throughout the office. "He's so intimidating," my cubicle neighbor Priya had whispered during my first week. Last quarter, he fired the entire product development team and rebuilt it from scratch because they missed a deadline. I'd nodded, wide-eyed, making a mental note to triple-check all my work before submission. But as the weeks passed, I noticed something else about Alexander Chen. Behind the stern exterior was a leader who remembered everyone's names, who stayed late helping the janitorial staff when the building flooded during a storm, who kept a photo of his rescue dog on his desk. He wasn't just intimidating, he was impressive. My brother Jake had heard plenty about my new workplace during our weekly phone calls. As my confidant since childhood, he was used to my rambling updates about life. "So how's the hot boss?" he'd taken to asking, always with the same teasing tone. "Stop calling him that," I'd reply, though I never actually denied the accuracy of the description. The fateful Friday had been particularly grueling. Our team had been preparing for a major product launch, and I'd spent 14 hours finalizing press releases, coordinating with influencers, and putting out small fires before they became infernos. By evening, I was exhausted but proud. Everything was ready for Monday's announcement. As I was packing up, Alexander had stopped by my desk. "Emily," he'd said, my name sounding somehow different in his voice. "I saw the media kit you prepared. The approach is innovative, focusing on the environmental impact rather than just the technical specifications. It's exactly what we needed." I'd managed to stammer out a thank you, trying not to fixate on how the sleeves of his rolled-up shirt revealed forearms that suggested he found time for the gym despite his punishing schedule. "You've been a valuable addition to the team," he'd continued. "I'm looking forward to seeing what else you bring to Horizon." With that, he'd nodded and walked away, leaving me simultaneously floating on air from the praise and mentally kicking myself for not saying something more intelligent than "thanks." Later that night, after a celebratory glass of wine and takeout dinner in my tiny apartment, I'd flopped onto my couch and picked up my phone to text Jake. "You won't believe what happened today," I typed. "My CEO is so hot it should be illegal," and he complimented my work. "Pretty sure this means we're getting married next spring. I've already picked out names for our children." I hit send, laughing to myself at the ridiculous exaggeration, and waited for Jake's inevitable teasing response. When my phone pinged a moment later, I glanced down, and the world stopped spinning. The message hadn't gone to Jake. It had gone to Alex C., my CEO's contact, which I'd saved after a company-wide email about reaching leadership directly with urgent matters. I stared at the screen in horror, watching as the delivered status changed to read. Then, the 3 dots appeared, indicating he was typing a response. I threw my phone across the couch as if it had burst into flames. This couldn't be happening. I just joked about marrying my boss and naming our fictional children to my actual boss. When I finally gathered the courage to look at my phone again, there was his reply, "Emily, I think this message was intended for someone else." Just 8 words, but they might as well have been a death sentence for my career, my dignity, and any future professional reference I might have hoped for. I didn't sleep that night. Instead, I cycled through increasingly desperate plans: quit immediately via email, pretend my phone had been stolen, claim it was a dare, or simply never show my face at Horizon again and possibly change my name and move to another country. By morning, I'd settled on the only honorable option: face the music. I would go to Alexander's office first thing Monday, apologize profusely, assure him I was a professional who could separate personal observations from workplace behavior, and accept whatever consequences came my way, even if that meant losing the job I'd come to love. The weekend crawled by in a haze of anxiety. I drafted and deleted dozens of explanatory texts, ultimately deciding that digging the hole deeper was unwise. Monday arrived with the weight of impending doom. I arrived at the office early, hoping to speak with Alexander before others arrived, but his office remained dark. As colleagues filtered in, I went through the motions of checking emails and reviewing the launch schedule, all while feeling like I was walking toward the gallows. At 10 a.m., Alexander strode in, nodding greetings to the team as he passed. My heart hammered against my ribs as he approached my desk. "Emily, could I see you in my office?" he asked, his expression unreadable. The walk to his corner office felt like the longest journey of my life. Inside, he gestured for me to take a seat across from his desk. "About Friday night's message," he began, and I braced myself. "I'm so sorry," I blurted out. It was completely unprofessional and inappropriate. "I meant to send it to my brother. We have this running joke, but that's no excuse. I deeply apologize and assure you nothing like this will ever happen again." Alexander studied me for a moment, his expression softening slightly. "Emily, I'm not concerned about you finding me attractive. That's human nature, and frankly, not relevant to your job performance, which has been exemplary." I blinked, not expecting this response. "What concerns me," he continued, "is that you might feel uncomfortable working here now. The last thing I want is to lose a talented team member over an honest mistake." The knot in my stomach began to loosen slightly. "I'm mortified," I admitted, "but I love working here. If you can move past this, I certainly can." He nodded, then surprised me with a small smile. "Good. Because we have a launch to execute, and I need your focus on that, not on an errant text." As I stood to leave, relief washing over me, he added, "And Emily? For the record, spring weddings are overrated. Too unpredictable with the rain." My face flamed as I realized he was making a joke, a reference to my ridiculous text. I managed a strangled laugh and escaped to the safety of my desk. The product launch went flawlessly. Our team celebrated with champagne in the conference room, and though I was careful to maintain a professional distance from Alexander, I caught him watching me a few times with an expression I couldn't quite decipher. Weeks passed, and the text incident faded into background embarrassment. I threw myself into new projects, determined to be known for my work rather than my mortifying faux pas. Alexander and I settled into a comfortable professional relationship, occasionally discussing marketing strategies over coffee in the break room. It was during one such conversation, 2 months after the text, that he mentioned a charity gala Horizon was sponsoring. "We need someone from marketing to attend," he said. "To network with potential partners and document the event for our social channels. Would you be interested?" I agreed immediately, seeing it as an opportunity to further establish myself as a serious professional. The night of the gala arrived, and I wore my one designer dress, a midnight blue number I'd splurged on for my college graduation. The venue was spectacular, a historic hotel ballroom transformed with twinkling lights and floral arrangements. I was photographing a particularly impressive ice sculpture when Alexander appeared beside me, looking even more handsome in his tuxedo than he did in his office attire. "You clean up well," he said, then immediately looked embarrassed. "I mean, you look nice. Professional, but nice." I couldn't help but smile at his sudden awkwardness. "Thank you. You don't look so bad yourself." As the evening progressed, I noticed Alexander gravitating toward me between his conversations with investors and partners. We found ourselves sharing observations about the other attendees, laughing at the same moments, standing perhaps a bit closer than strictly necessary. During a lull in the festivities, he led me to a quiet corner of the balcony overlooking the city lights. "I have a confession to make," he said, his voice lower than usual. "When I received your text that night, after the initial shock, I was flattered." My breath caught. "Flattered?" He nodded, looking uncharacteristically uncertain. "I've noticed you since your first day, Emily. Your creativity, your dedication, the way you stand up for your ideas even when challenged. But I'm your boss, and there are boundaries that shouldn't be crossed." "I understand," I said, though my heart was racing with possibilities. "However," he continued, "I've been thinking about restructuring the marketing department. Creating a position that would report directly to our CMO instead of to me." I studied his face, trying to understand what he was suggesting. "Are you demoting me?" He laughed softly. "No. I'm creating a path where, potentially, you wouldn't be directly under my supervision. If that were the case, certain boundaries would be less problematic." The implication hung in the air between us, full of promise and complication. "That sounds like a very thoughtful restructuring," I finally said, unable to keep a small smile from my lips. "I thought so," he replied, his eyes never leaving mine. "Of course, nothing can happen until that's finalized. Company policy." "Of course," I agreed. "We're professionals, after all." The following weeks were a strange dance of professional collaboration and unspoken anticipation. True to his word, Alexander announced a departmental restructuring, and I found myself with a new title reporting to the Chief Marketing Officer. On my first day in the new position, I received a text from Alexander, now just Alex to me. "Congratulations on the promotion," it read. "Would you be interested in discussing your career goals over dinner this weekend? Somewhere outside the office." I smiled as I typed my reply, "I'd like that. But fair warning, I might accidentally send my response to my brother instead." His answer came immediately, "In that case, make sure to mention how hot your former CEO is. I hear he has a thing for marketing specialists with a talent for accidental texts." 6 months later, as Alex and I celebrated our first official date anniversary at the same restaurant where we'd finally stepped beyond the boundaries of boss and employee, I couldn't help but marvel at how one mortifying mistake had changed the course of my life. "You know," I told him over dessert, "I should probably thank my clumsy texting fingers. Without that humiliating moment, we might never have gotten here." He reached across the table to take my hand. "I've always believed that our most embarrassing moments often lead to our greatest opportunities. Sometimes we need to be vulnerable, even accidentally, to open doors we didn't know existed." As I looked at the man across from me, no longer just my intimidating, attractive boss but now my partner, my confidant, my love, I realized how true that was. My greatest professional embarrassment had led to my greatest personal joy. So if you're watching this and cringing at your own awkward moment, remember my story. That text, email, or comment you wish you could take back. It might just be the beginning of something wonderful. Life has a funny way of turning our mistakes into miracles when we have the courage to face them head-on. And if you enjoyed this journey from mortification to happiness, please like this video and subscribe for more stories about finding love and success in the most unexpected places. Sometimes, the wrong text goes to exactly the right person.